The more successful you get in business and life, especially if you are out speaking on podcasts, in other words, getting your face in front of other people, the more you tend to have opportunities come your way. Opportunities that you didn't plan for, that you didn't ask for, they just like happen. Somebody walks up to you at an event, somebody calls you, somebody sends you an email. And when these opportunities happen, it helps to have a model, a way to think through them to decide whether these opportunities are actually a good idea for you. Here's the thing about these opportunities. When they happen, they tend to be, hey, you're flattered that someone's asking you and giving you this opportunity. And hey, they may even sound very exciting to you as you're hearing about them. This excitement is even stronger if you're struggling. So if you're having, if you tried a bunch of things and they haven't really worked as well as you'd like them to, and you're starting to question whether your business model is right, whether your avatar is right, whether the way you're marketing is right, whatever it is, they can be very flattering and sound really good. But notice I use the word but instead of however, because I think it's appropriate in this case to use the word but, which is this. You don't have to take every opportunity that comes to you. In fact, in my experience, you probably shouldn't take most of the opportunities that come your way. And there's some reasons for that. And let me show you the mental process that I go through as I evaluate those opportunities to decide whether they're a good idea for me or not. Because as I said, hey, they're flattering and it's exciting. But in the meantime, you need to be in control. So here we go. Let me show you the strategies. This is the model that I use that I suggest you use. First question, is this on strategy? So I have a strategy for where I'm going, what I'm going to do. Is this consistent and on strategy with that? Now, that question is particularly hard if you're struggling, things aren't quite working right now, and you're starting to question, is this strategy right or not? Which is the reason why that's not the only question that you ask. Secondly, will the return on investment, because you're going to make an investment for every opportunity, whether it's money or time or attention or whatever, will the return on that investment be worthwhile to you? This is important. Now, let me just step back and bring something up here. A lot of these opportunities are things like, hey, we want you to contribute a chapter to this book, and you only have to pay $2,250 to buy 200 copies of this book. And, or we want you to come speak, or we want you to be part of this summit, which requires you to mail to your list 5 times about this summit. All these things, all these opportunities that come along, most of them tend to have and this will give you exposure, which will increase your impact on the market. And yes, they tend to do that. But what the challenge is that oftentimes the return on the investment that you make is not enough. And in many cases, that exposure, you go in thinking that exposure is going to be huge, and it's little. And if you're not good at converting those little, so let's say you go and speak in front of an audience of 50 people. If you don't have 3 of them asking to meet with you to explain what it is you do, you probably didn't do a good enough job in that particular situation of choosing the right audience or giving the right presentation or whatever it is. And you better get at least one of those that turns into enough of a piece of business to pay for the time you spent doing that. That all makes sense? Okay, so here's the next question. So we just talked about, this is the last card, we talked about the return being worthwhile. Now we have an even more important question, which is this. What's the probability that there actually will be a return? So this gets into the thing I was just talking about is, okay, you're going to get exposure to the market. Well, Is there a probability that I'm actually going to get some business out of that opportunity? I will tell you, in most cases, as I watch most people, there is no return that comes out of it for them. And you ought to consider that in your particular case. Are you good at doing this? Can you turn exposure into cash in your pocket? And it may be that 3 years from now you can, but right now you don't have a big enough name. You haven't done those kinds of things. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should never do opportunities. I'm giving you opportunities to choose. Next, what will my actual cost be? Oh, it's not going to cost me anything. Well, if I have to email 5 emailings out to my list about this summit, there's a cost. There's people are going to unsubscribe. Those are opportunities I could have mailed about something else to build a relationship. Those are opportunities I could have sent out an affiliate mailing. Those are opportunities, if I have to go get on a plane, fly to San Diego, cost me a day, pay for 3 nights of hotel, speak, and then fly back, I'm going to pay $1,000 to get there, and I'm going to pay $1,000 in food and housing while I'm there. It's going to cost me $2,000. Yes, it may cost me nothing to speak, but it's going to cost me $2,000 for that event, not counting all the time that went out in that process. Almost every opportunity comes with a cost. You need to be able to actually evaluate what those costs are and not just discount them away in your mind. Next, could I make better use of that time or those resources? So yes, it's not going to cost me much. Hey, all I can do is drive down an hour away and they're paying for the hotel. Okay, well, it's still going to cost you 2 days of your time, 3 days of your time. Could I have used those 3 days in a way that will give me a higher return? I don't know the answer. I'm just giving you the questions. Now, this actually, technically, it's not the last question, but this question is really, really important to look at. And I'm not a cynic. I'm not a skeptic, but I always ask myself the question, what's in it for them if I accept? And what I find is that in most cases, when they bring you an unsolicited opportunity, when you didn't ask for it, you weren't looking for this, you weren't expecting it, they just bring it to you. In most cases, there is more in it for them than there is for you. And that's fine. Sometimes I will take those opportunities, even when I realize there's more in it for them than there is for me, if there are other returns that tend to sway things in my favor. But it is helpful to ask that question, because sometimes you'll go, I don't want to be involved in this. And then this one, if it works as they promise, will I be pleased with where I am at the end of this process? So I've been asked to speak in front of some audiences that are so far away from my core audience that if I would totally nail it and do that, all of a sudden I'm playing in a different world than my audience. Do I want to play in that world? Am I equipped to play in that world? Do I have skills in that world? And sometimes the answer is absolutely not. I really don't want to go be part of that world. It's not my world. It's not an area that I want to play in long time. Final question. I think this one's a really important one. Can I say yes at a future time? So oftentimes these opportunities come with a deadline. You got to agree this week because I'm putting together the final roster. And sometimes you're going, oh, I'm really busy right now, or this doesn't really fit or whatever. It sounds like a good deal, but I just can't. In most cases, you can say yes a year from now, when you might be totally set up, totally ready to do this. May not be today, but a year from now you will be. So never forget, most deadlines aren't really real. You can say yes at a future time. Summary, hey, just be wise and careful. One of the things that I see all the time, especially in businesses up to about $250,000 in revenue, is that they tend to get so many things going on. So many products they've offered, so many programs they're part of, so many commitments they've made that they can't get good at any of them. They can't really optimize any of them. And so what ends up happening is they got a whole bunch of things that they're okay or bad at every one of them. And it shows in their business, in their life, in their mindset, in their self-confidence, in everything. Don't do that to yourself. Control your world. Control what you say yes to. And more importantly, control what you say no to. You can say no kindly and nicely. This doesn't fit my business right now. This doesn't fit my business at all. Whatever that is, just be wise. Just be careful. What's your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.